Son kicks out unemployed father, but regrets it after discovering his father's secret. Richard clutched the small wooden box to his chest as Michael shouted words that cut deeper than any blade. The bills scattered across the kitchen table trembled. With each punch the young man landed on the worn wood. "I can't take it anymore, Dad. 6 months without a job, 6 months of humiliating me in front of Jessica." Michael pointed to the... "Taz, I want you out now." "Son, just give me a few more days." "Days? You've had months. Jessica doesn't even want to come here anymore. She's so ashamed. A man your age living off me." Richard hung his head. The cough he'd been holding back erupted, shaking his entire body. Michael rolled his eyes. "And now you're sick too. More money for medicine. That's it, Dad. Enough." Richard's trembling hands tightened around the wooden box. It was all he had left of value. He looked at the son he'd raised alone since he was 8, when Jennifer left without a word. "I'll go, Michael. I just need to grab some clothes. Take whatever you want, but hurry up. Jessica's coming for dinner tonight, and I don't want her seeing you here." Richard climbed the stairs slowly. Each step felt like it weighed a ton. In the bedroom he'd occupied for decades, he took an old backpack and stuffed in a few pieces of clothing. The wooden box was carefully wrapped in a t-shirt before being tucked inside. When he came back down, Michael had his back turned, scrolling on his phone. He didn't even look up to say goodbye. Richard paused at the door, waiting, maybe for a word, a gesture, anything. "What are you waiting for?" Michael finally glanced up. "Just go." Richard left. The sound of the door closing echoed through the empty streets of Allentown. It was just another Thursday evening, but to him it felt like the end of the world. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, back to the story. He wandered aimlessly for a few blocks. The backpack weighed on his shoulders, but not as much as the pain in his chest. He thought of Stanley, an old co-worker from Liberty Metalworks. Maybe he could help. Stanley's house was on the other side of town. Richard walked the whole way, saving bus fare. By the time he arrived, the sun had set. Stanley opened the door and his eyes widened. "Richard, my God, what happened? Can we talk?" Sitting on the porch, Richard told him about being laid off 6 months ago, the financial struggles, and now being kicked out. Stanley shook his head in disbelief. "Michael did that? The boy you raised with so much sacrifice?" "He's right. Stanley, I'm just dead weight, 55 and unemployed." "Don't talk like that. You're the best lathe operator I know. It's the recession. It's hit everyone." Stanley's wife, Dorothy, appeared with coffee and bread. Her eyes held pity, which only made Richard feel worse. "You can stay here a few days," Stanley offered, "until you get back on your feet. I don't want to be a burden." "Nonsense. Friends are there for times like this." Richard accepted, promising himself it would only be temporary. He was given a small back room once used for tools. The mattress on the floor was uncomfortable, but better than the street. That night, his cough worsened. Richard muffled the sound with his pillow to avoid waking anyone. Clutching the wooden box, he cried for the first time in years, not for his situation, but for the cruelty in Michael's words. In the morning, he left early to look for work. Age was an invisible but powerful barrier. Everywhere he went, he saw the same dismissive look. Too old, too qualified, too expensive. On the third day, he found a mechanic's shop needing an assistant. The pay was pitiful, but Richard took it on the spot. The owner, Mr. Harrington, was a rough but fair man. "You've got experience, that's clear. But the work here is tough. Can you handle it?" "Yes, sir, I can." "Then start tomorrow, 7 o'clock sharp." Richard returned to Stanley's house with a shy smile. At least he'd have some money to help with expenses and not be a complete burden. The work at the shop was truly heavy, carrying parts, cleaning the oil-stained floor, organizing tools. His back ached, but Richard didn't complain. At lunch, he ate just a sandwich to save money. Mr. Harrington watched from afar. There was something about that man that didn't add up. The calloused hands, sure, but the way he spoke, his manners, how he examined the parts. He wasn't just some helper. "Richard, come here," he called at the end of the first week. "Do you know how to operate a lathe?" "A little, sir." "A little? I saw you looking at the part Joe was working on." Your eyes lit up. Richard scratched his head, embarrassed. I worked 20 years as a machinist at Liberty Metalworks. Why didn't you say so before? I need someone skilled. You said you needed a helper, and I needed the job. Stanley shook his head, impressed by his humility. Starting Monday, you're on the lathe. The pay's better. Richard thanked him, moved. It was a chance to do what he knew, what he loved. That night, he held the wooden box with renewed hope. Meanwhile, Michael was discovering that managing a household was harder than he'd imagined. Bills piled up one after another. Electricity, water, gas, internet, groceries. The salary that had seemed enough vanished. Honey, we need to talk about expenses. He tried with Jessica over dinner. Expenses? I thought now that your father's gone, things would be easier. It's just, there are so many bills. Jessica frowned. Michael, you said he was dead weight, that without him we'd even have money to travel. I know what I said, but nothing. You chose this. Now deal with it. The argument dragged on all night. Jessica was upset because Michael had cancelled their planned dinner at an expensive restaurant. She didn't understand, or didn't want to understand, their new financial reality. Days passed. Michael tried calling his father, but the number was out of service. A pang in his chest unsettled him. Where was Richard? Was he okay? At the shop, Richard had earned everyone's respect. His work on the lathe was flawless. Parts that took others hours to finish, he completed in minutes with surgical precision. You're an artist, Richard, Mr. Harrington praised. Where'd you learn to do this? Life teaches you, boss. When you love what you do, your hands follow your heart. At lunch, the other mechanics gathered to hear his stories. Richard spoke of his son with pride, never mentioning the rejection. He showed old photos on his phone. This is my Michael, business degree, my pride and joy. Does he live with you? Asked Tommy, the youngest mechanic. No, he's got his own life now. His persistent cough worried his co-workers. Mrs. Jenkins, who sold lunchboxes, always included tea with Richard's meal. For that cough, Mr. Richard, my grandmother swore by it. Richard thanked her, touched by strangers' kindness while missing the son he'd raised. 2 weeks passed. The situation at Stanley's house grew uncomfortable. Richard noticed Dorothy's glances, the thinly veiled discomfort. It was time to find another place. Stanley, thank you for everything. But I'll look for a room to rent. You don't have to, Richard. I do, you've already done too much for me. With his first paycheck from the shop, Richard rented a small room in a boarding house downtown. It was tiny, stuffy, but it was his. The wooden box was carefully placed on the only shelf. At night, alone in that cramped space, Richard opened the box and looked at its contents. Photos of Michael at every age. The first baby tooth that fell out. The college diploma. Every memory carefully preserved. The cough got worse, especially at night. Richard took cheap cough syrup from the pharmacy, but the relief was temporary. During the day, he hid his discomfort. He couldn't afford to lose his job now. Michael, on the other hand, was drowning in debt. He'd discovered that his father had been paying several bills he didn't even know existed. The house insurance, car maintenance, small repairs, everything always quietly taken care of by Richard. Jessica, I need you to help me with some bills this month. Help? Michael, I don't work to support the household. That's your job as the man. But we're together. Together. You kicked your own father out to impress me, and now you want me to pay your bills. The fight was ugly. Jessica threatened to end the relationship if Michael didn't act like a man. The young man was desperate. He'd done everything for her, even kicked out his father, and now she was treating him like this? At work, Michael couldn't focus. His boss called him out several times. His productivity dropped. At home, unpaid bills piled up on the table. He decided to go to the bank to try for a loan. That's when he discovered something that left him stunned. There was a savings account in Richard's name, with regular deposits for years. Mr. Michael, the manager said after checking the system, your father made monthly deposits into this account, even during periods when the system shows he was unemployed. What? Where was the money coming from? I can't disclose third-party transactions. But I can tell you he never touched the principal. He only deposited. Michael left the bank, in a daze. What kind of secret was this? Where did his father get money to save when they were always struggling at home? He decided to investigate. He went to Liberty Metalworks, where Richard had worked for decades. The supervisor, Mr. Wilson, greeted him with surprise. "Michael, Richard's son, how is he?" "He's fine, Mr. Wilson. I need to understand something about my father." "Ask away. Richard is one of the best men I've ever known." "Why was he really fired?" Wilson sighed deeply. "Cost cuts. The company had to let go of 30% of the staff. Richard was on the list because of his higher seniority pay, but he was the hardest to let go. The man cried in my office, not for himself, but because he wouldn't be able to help his son anymore." "Help how?" "Oh, he always talked about you, showed off every achievement of yours to everyone, said any sacrifice was worth it to see his son educated and successful. Did you know he turned down a promotion years ago?" "Turned it down? Why? It would have required a lot of travel. He said he couldn't leave you alone in your teens, that being a present father was worth more than money." Michael's legs went weak. He sat in a chair trying to process it. "There's more," Wilson continued. "Richard sold overtime, hours to some co-workers. He'd do the work and clock in for others who needed the money. He kept a small cut, said it was for an emergency fund." "The savings," Michael murmured. "Exactly. All to make sure you'd be secure if something happened to him. Where is he living now?" "I tried calling, but the number changed." Michael couldn't answer. He left with his world spinning. How many sacrifices had his father made that he'd never noticed? At home, he searched through his father's papers still in the office. He found a brown envelope hidden between old books. Inside was a letter from his mother. His hands shook as he read, "Richard, I know you'll take good care of him. Thank you for agreeing to raise my son as your own, even knowing the truth. Michael is lucky to have you as his father. Jennifer." The paper fell from Michael's hands. He wasn't Richard's biological son. The man he'd kicked out had chosen him, raised him, loved him without any obligation. Desperation took over. He needed to find his father. He asked his friends for help, went to hospitals, police stations. Nothing. Richard had disappeared in the big city. Meanwhile, Richard kept to his routine at the workshop. His work earned him praise, but his body paid the price. His cough worsened, sometimes with blood. He hid it from everyone, discreetly cleaning up. A month passed. One day, Richard collapsed, at work. Mr. Harrington rushed him to the emergency room. The diagnosis, advanced pneumonia. "Why didn't you seek help sooner?" the doctor scolded. "I couldn't miss work, doctor. Your health is worth more than any job." Richard was admitted. Alone in his Medicare hospital room, he clung to the wooden box he'd insisted on bringing. The nurses were moved by this polite older man who had no one. Mr. Harrington came to visit, bringing fruit. "Richard, do you have family? Someone we should notify?" "No need, thank you for your concern, but Richard, please, I'm fine like this." Mr. Harrington left worried. Something was very wrong with this situation. A man like that, polite, hard-working, alone in a hospital. Then fate intervened. Mr. Harrington spotted Michael by chance at a traffic light, recognizing him from a photo Richard had shown. He honked and shouted, "Hey, aren't you Michael?" Michael approached, confused. "Yes, why?" "I'm Mr. Harrington, your father's boss. He's in the hospital." The world stopped. Michael left his car right there and got into Mr. Harrington's. "Which hospital? What happened?" "Mercy General. Pneumonia." "But he didn't want anyone." "Notified. How long has he worked for you?" "Just over a month. He showed up needing a job. A man like him working as a helper. Later I found out he was a skilled lathe operator." Michael covered his face with his hands. "A month. His father had been doing manual labor for a month because of him." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, at the hospital, Michael ran through the halls until he found the room. He stopped at the door when he saw his father. Richard was thin, worn out, clutching a wooden box. The contrast to the strong man he knew was shocking. "Dad!" Richard opened his eyes slowly. For a moment he thought he was hallucinating. "Michael?" Dad, forgive me, forgive me. Michael knelt by the bed, crying like he hadn't since childhood. Richard reached out a trembling hand and stroked his son's hair. No need to ask for forgiveness, son. Yes, there is. I was a monster. You raised me, loved me, and I... Shh. It's okay. It's not. I found out everything. The savings, the sacrifices, my mother's letter. Richard's eyes widened. You read the letter? Yes. Why did you never tell me I wasn't your blood son? Richard took a deep breath. Because you've always been my son, Michael. From the day your mother left and you hugged me crying, asking if I'd leave you too. I promised that day I'd never abandon you. Blood doesn't make family, love does. Michael sobbed uncontrollably. The nurse came in and asked for calm. The patient needed rest, but Richard held his son's hand. Stay a little longer. Dad, what's in that? Box you won't let go of. Richard smiled weakly and opened the box. Michael saw all his photos from babyhood to graduation, report cards, childhood drawings, even a baby tooth kept in a small bag. It's my treasure, everything most precious to me. Dad. Michael couldn't speak. Look at this. Richard took out a little notebook. I wrote down every achievement of yours. First day of school, first girlfriend, first job, everything. Michael flipped through the notebook. Every page was a silent declaration of love. Dates, events, always with his father's tender notes. Today, Michael learned to ride a bike, fell 3 times but didn't give up. So proud of my brave boy. Michael got into college. I cried hidden in the bathroom from so much happiness. My son graduated today. The man he's become is worth every sacrifice. I don't deserve all this love, said Michael through tears. Yes, you do. You're a good boy, Michael. You were just confused, under pressure. I understand. Jessica broke up with me, said I'm weak, that I'm not fit to be a man. Then she did you a favor. Someone who truly loves you doesn't abandon you in hard times. The following days were about reconciliation. Michael went to the hospital daily. He brought home-cooked meals, trying to make up for the abandonment in some way. Dad, I found a better place for you to live. A small but decent apartment. Son, you don't have to... Yes, I do, and I'm moving in with you. I sold the car, I'm selling the house. We are starting over, Dad. Richard was moved. The son who had kicked him out now wanted to rebuild everything. But your job, your life... My life is you, Dad. The rest we can rebuild. The hospital discharge came after a week. Michael picked up his father in a taxi, having sold his car to pay off debts. Richard was surprised they weren't heading to the old house. Where are we going? It's a surprise, Dad. They stopped at a simple but well-kept building downtown. A 3rd-floor apartment, 2 bedrooms, a nice view of a park. Michael, this must be expensive. I sold everything that didn't matter, Dad. Car, electronics, all the extras. What matters is us being together. Richard cried when he saw the room prepared for him, simple but filled with care in every detail. The wooden box was given a place of honor on a special shelf. The adjustment wasn't easy. Richard still coughed a lot and needed care. Michael learned to cook, clean, and be the son he should have always been. Dad, I need to confess something. I'm scared. Scared of what, son? Of not being half the man you are, of failing again. Richard cupped his son's face in his hands. You're already a better man for admitting your mistakes. That takes courage. The building's neighbors quickly grew fond of the pair. Mrs. Henderson, a lady from the floor below, always showed up with a cake or soup. Mr. Richard, you need to eat better to get rid of that cough. Life settled into a new routine. Michael woke up early, made his father's coffee, went to work, and rushed back at lunch to check on him. Richard protested. Son, you don't have to come for lunch every day. You're spending on fare. I save on lunch, Dad, and I like eating with you. It was true. Their meals together became sacred. They talked about everything they'd never said before. Richard shared stories of his youth, his time with Jennifer, and how he'd raised Michael alone. You know what the hardest day was? Richard asked during dinner. Which one? When you turned 18, I knew I could tell you the truth, but you were so happy calling me Dad. I couldn't bring myself to ruin it. I'm glad you didn't. Maybe I was too immature to understand that a father is the one who raises you. Mr. Harrington came to visit with an offer. "Richard, when you're better, your spot at the lathe is waiting." "Thank you, Stanley. But I don't know if my body can take it anymore." "We'll figure it out. Reduced hours, lighter work." "I can't lose a professional like you." Michael stepped in. "Dad, take it. Working at what you love will help your recovery." With his son's support, Richard agreed. Returning to the lathe was emotional. His hands still knew every movement, every secret of the metal. His co-workers applauded. "The master's back," shouted Tommy. Richard smiled, moved. It felt good to be useful again. Michael picked up his father every day after work. The shop workers teased. "Mr. Richard, what a devoted son you have." "It wasn't always like this," Richard replied. "But what matters is now." 3 months passed. Richard's cough improved but never fully went away. Michael insisted on more detailed tests. The doctor was cautious. "It's pulmonary fibrosis, likely caused by years of exposure to chemicals at the metalworks. There's no cure, but with care, it can be managed." Michael was desperate, but Richard remained calm. "Son, I've lived my life. I worked, raised. You saw you graduate. I'm at peace." "Don't talk like that, Dad. We still have so much ahead. And we'll live each day without wasting it on sadness." The news brought father and son even closer. Michael researched treatments, adapted the house, bought an oxygen concentrator for emergencies. Richard was moved by every gesture. "I'm causing so much trouble." "Trouble? You worked your whole life for me. Let me give back a little." Mrs. Henderson, the neighbor, became a constant presence. They learned she was a widow, a former teacher, and loved to cook. Soon she was making dinners for the 3 of them. Men alone need real food. She'd say bringing pots over. Their time together brought discoveries. Mrs. Henderson was cultured, good-humored, and Richard acted differently around her. Michael noticed the glances, the shy smiles. "Dad, Mrs. Henderson is nice, huh? She's a good friend." "Just a friend?" Richard turned red like a teenager. "Michael, what kind of question is that?" "Come on, Dad, you deserve to be happy. And she likes you. It's obvious." The bond grew naturally. Mrs. Henderson looked after Richard while Michael worked. They went to the park together, talked about books and music. Richard smiled again like he hadn't in years. Michael quietly supported them. He gave them space, made up excuses to leave them alone. He watched his father come alive. "Jennifer is special," Richard confessed one night. "Then don't waste time, Dad. Life's too short to throw away love." The relationship grew, slowly, with the tenderness of those who've lived much. Holding hands on walks, dinners for 3 that turned into late-night talks, a warmth that filled the soul. A year had passed since the expulsion. Michael threw a surprise party for Richard's birthday. He invited workshop colleagues, neighbors, Stanley and his family. "Dad, I have something to show you," Michael said during the party. He handed him an envelope. Richard opened it and found the deed to a small house in a quiet neighborhood. "Michael, what's this?" "Our new home, Dad. I bought it with the money from selling the other one and my savings. Single story, so you don't have to climb stairs, with a yard for gardening." Richard couldn't speak. He hugged his son tightly as everyone applauded. "There's more," Michael said. "Mrs. Henderson, there's a guest room if you'd like to visit often." Jennifer smiled, moved. Richard squeezed her hand, his eyes full of happy tears. The move was a celebration. Every piece of furniture placed was a new memory being made. Richard got a small workshop in the back for lathe work as a hobby. "Now I feel complete," he said, looking at the new house. "Just one thing missing," Michael said. He brought out the wooden box and placed it in a spot of honor in the living room. "Our treasures deserve pride of place, Dad. Life in the new house brought peace." Richard planted a garden. Michael learned woodworking from his father. Jennifer visited daily, bringing joy and cakes. "You know, Michael," Richard said during a Sunday lunch, "I've learned family isn't just blood. It's a daily choice to love. You chose me when you didn't have to, Dad. Loved me when even my birth mother couldn't. And you chose me back, son. Forgave me, took me in. That's true love." Mrs. Henderson served lunch with a smile. The full table, the laughter, the warmth between them all. It was the family they'd built with choices, forgiveness, and love. One day Michael came home with news. "Dad, remember Liberty Metalworks?" How could I forget? 20 years of my life. They're reopening. And Mr. Wilson called. They want you as a technical consultant, flexible hours, good pay. Richard was moved. But son, with my health, twice a week, part-time, just to guide the newcomers. Your knowledge is too valuable to waste. With Michael and Mrs. Henderson's support, Richard agreed. His return to Liberty Metalworks was triumphant. The few old colleagues who remained welcomed him as a hero. Richard's back. Now quality will improve. The work gave Richard a new purpose, teaching the young, passing on decades of knowledge. Many called him teacher, master. Michael accompanied his father when he could. He saw the respect everyone had for Richard, the accumulated wisdom, the patience to teach. "Dad, you're a legend here." "Not a legend, son. Just a worker who loves what he does." Richard's health had its ups and downs. Good days when he worked in the garden, taught at the metalworks, bad days when his breathing faltered. Michael was always alert. "You need to rest more, Dad." "Rest? I still have too much life to live." It was true. Richard cherished every moment. His relationship with Mrs. Henderson became official, much to Michael's joy. Seeing them together was proof that love knows no age. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, continuing. During a special dinner, Richard made an announcement. "Michael, Dorothy, I need to tell you something." They grew anxious. "Relax, it's good news. Remember the savings I kept all these years?" "Yes, Dad. The one I found at the bank. I never touched it. It was for emergencies, but you know, the biggest emergency is over. I almost lost my son. Now I want to use it to live." "What do you mean?" asked Dorothy. "I want to travel, see the ocean with both of you. I've always dreamed of watching the sunrise on the beach." Michael grinned widely. "Then let's go whenever you're ready, Dad." The trip was planned with care. They chose Virginia Beach, the Chicago coastline. Richard had never seen the ocean, despite his 60 years of life. His first glimpse of the sea left him speechless. He stood still on the sand, eyes glistening, holding Dorothy's hand in one of his and Michael's in the other. "It's more beautiful than I imagined," he whispered. They stayed a week. Richard woke early every day to watch the sunrise. Michael joined him, talking about life, dreams, gratitude. "You know what I've learned, son?" "What, Dad?" "That life's storms exist to teach us to cherish the calm. If we hadn't gone through what we did, maybe we'd never have this closeness." "Did you really forgive me?" "Truly." "The same day, son. It hurt, I won't lie. But a father's love has no pride, only forgiveness." Returning home brought renewal. Richard seemed younger, lighter. His work at the metalworks remained rewarding. The garden flourished. His love with Dorothy bloomed. Michael changed too. He became more humane at work, more understanding of others' mistakes. The experience made him a better man. One ordinary afternoon, Richard had a severe breathing episode. Michael acted fast, rushing him to Mercy General Hospital. Hours of tension until he stabilized. "Just a scare," Richard downplayed afterward. "Dad, don't brush it off. We need to take better care." "Son, I'm living. That's different from just existing. I'd rather live intensely for the time I have than just survive in fear." It was impossible to argue. Richard was right. Quality of life mattered more than quantity. Michael learned to respect that. Michael's birthday arrived. Richard organized a surprise with Dorothy's help. He gathered his son's friends, prepared a barbecue, decorated the house. "Dad, you didn't have to." "Yes, I did. How many of your birthdays did I miss by working too much? Now I want to make up for it." During the party, Richard gave a speech that moved everyone. "My son wasn't born from my blood, but he was born from my heart. I watched him grow, make mistakes, learn, become a man. The greatest pride of my life is being Michael's father." Michael hugged his father tightly. The guests applauded, many with tears in their eyes. It was impossible not to be moved by so much love. Life went on with precious moments. Richard taught Michael how to fish, something he had always wanted to do. They spent afternoons at the fishing spot, talking about everything and nothing. Patience in fishing teaches us about life, Richard philosophized. How so, Dad? The fish doesn't always come when we want it to, but if we give up, it never will. It takes persistence, calm, and faith. Mrs. Henderson officially moved into the house. The excuse was to take better care of Richard, but everyone knew it was love. The house became livelier, fuller. "Now we're truly a complete family," Richard said at dinner. "We always were, Richard," Mrs. Henderson corrected. "We just took a while to realize it." Michael watched happily. After so much turmoil, they finally had peace. The father he had nearly lost to pride was now his best friend. 2 years had passed. Since the reconciliation, Richard turned 60. Michael threw a big party inviting everyone who had been part of the journey. Stanley came with his family, emotional at seeing the transformation. "Richard, you look wonderful." "Love heals, my friend. Love from a son, a wife, friends. It's the best medicine." Mr. Harrington brought the whole workshop team. They insisted on honoring the master who had taught them so much. Richard showed us that work is more than just making money. It's dignity, it's art when done with love. The co-workers from Liberty Metalworks also came. Mr. Wilson gave a speech about how Richard had changed the lives of many young apprentices. He doesn't just teach how to turn metal, he teaches how to shape character. Michael watched his father receive all that affection. The man who had been cast aside as dead weight was actually a treasure in so many lives. During the party, Michael asked for everyone's attention. "I have an announcement. Dad, Mrs. Henderson, brace yourselves." The two exchanged curious glances. "I've met someone special. Emily works with me. She's a nurse. I want to introduce her officially." Richard jumped from his chair, forgetting his physical limitations. "My son, what wonderful news." Emily entered shyly. Brunette, sweet smile, simple demeanor. Richard and Mrs. Henderson welcomed her immediately. "Welcome to the family, my dear," Richard said. "Thank you, Mr. Richard. Michael talks about you so much. I feel like I've known you for years." The party gained new energy. Love multiplied in that house. Richard danced with Mrs. Henderson, Michael with Emily. Happiness overflowed. At the end of the night, father and son sat on the porch. The starry sky bore witness to another important conversation. "Dad, I think I'm going to ask Emily to be my serious girlfriend." "I think that's great, son. She seems special. I learned from you and Mrs. Henderson that true love isn't rushed, but it also shouldn't be wasted." Wise words. I'm proud of the man you've become. I'm a reflection of the father I had, the father I chose to have. Michael and Emily's relationship progressed naturally. She became part of the family, joining Sunday lunches, helping Mrs. Henderson in the kitchen, talking with Richard about life. "She's a good girl," Richard approved. "She has values. She's hard-working. She loves my son." "And most importantly," Mrs. Henderson added, "she accepts our family as we are." It was true. Emily never questioned the unique dynamic of that home, where love had overcome resentment, where forgiveness had built bridges. Richard's health fluctuated, but he kept his spirits high. The doctors were impressed by his determination. "You're a special case, Mr. Richard. The will to live makes a difference in treatment. I have so much to live for, doctor. A happy son, a woman I love, work that fulfills me." Liberty Metalworks increased Richard's consulting days. Even with physical limitations, his mind stayed sharp. He created a mentorship program for young apprentices. "Knowledge not shared is knowledge lost," he told his pupils. Michael joined in whenever he could. He saw in his father the transmission not just of technique, but of life philosophy, professional ethics, and love for the craft. One of the apprentices, Jason, was especially dedicated. He reminded Richard of himself as a young man. With no family, he lived in a shelter but had a hunger to learn. "Jason, you have talent. Don't waste it." "Thank you, Mr. Richard. You're the father I never had." Richard was moved. He spoke with Michael and Mrs. Henderson about helping the young man. They decided to mentor Jason, assisting with his studies and housing. A father receives a son in many ways, Richard said. You taught me that, Michael. Jason flourished with the support. He became an excellent lathe operator, studied at night and overcame his hardships. Another life transformed by love. Michael and Emily's engagement was celebrated with joy. Richard insisted on giving his son the ring that had belonged to his own father. This ring has history, son. My father gave it to my mother, and now it passes to you. But, Dad, this was meant for you to give to Mrs. Henderson. We've already talked about this. Our love doesn't need symbols. It proves itself every day. The wedding was set for 6 months later. Richard was determined to walk his son down the aisle, even if he needed help. Preparations kept the house busy. Mrs. Henderson and Emily became best friends, planning every detail. Richard offered marriage advice. Son, want to know the secret? What, Dad? Daily forgiveness. Every day you'll make mistakes with each other. What keeps love alive is forgiving quickly and sincerely. Like how you forgave me. Exactly. Love without forgiveness is just empty words. A month before the wedding, Richard had another health crisis. This time, it was more serious. Michael didn't leave the hospital until his father stabilized. I need to get better for the wedding, were Richard's first words upon waking. Dad, if we need to postpone, don't even think about it. I'll walk you down that aisle even if it's in a wheelchair. His determination worked. Richard recovered, returning home weaker, but with his spirit unbroken. Daily physical therapy, strict diet, everything to stand tall on the big day. The morning of the wedding arrived. Richard woke early, emotional. Michael found him on the porch watching the sunrise. Nervous, son? A little. And you? Proud. So very proud. They dressed together, helping each other with ties and cufflinks. Richard had to sit several times to catch his breath, but he wouldn't give up. Dad, we can get a chair. Michael, I'm walking into that church on my own 2 feet. It's a promise I made. At the church, everyone was moved when Richard walked in with Michael. Slow but steady steps, his son subtly supporting him. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Emily looked beautiful, radiant. But the most emotional moment came when Richard handed his son over at the altar and whispered, "Take care of him as I did, with unconditional love." The reception was at the house, simple but full of love. Richard danced a waltz with Emily, symbolically passing the care of his son to her. "Welcome officially to the family, my daughter." "Thank you, Dad. I promise to love your son as you do. Then he'll be the most loved man in the world." At the end of the party, Richard gave a speech that would stay in everyone's memory. 3 years ago, I faced the greatest trial of my life. I was cast out by the son I raised, but God works in mysterious ways. That pain brought me here to this moment of complete happiness. Michael, you gave me 2 gifts. First, choosing me as your father when you learned the truth. Second, forgiving and welcoming me when I needed it most. Today I see you married, happy, the honorable man you are. My mission is complete. Every day from here on is a blessing. May God bless your union, and may you be as happy as your father is today, a toast to love that conquers all. Everyone raised their glasses, moved. Michael hugged his father tightly. Emily joined the embrace, and Mrs. Henderson completed the circle of love. Life continued with new chapters. Michael and Emily lived in the old apartment, visiting Richard and Mrs. Henderson daily. The house remained the heart of family unity. Jason, the sponsored apprentice, graduated as a technician. On graduation day, he sought out Richard. "Mr. Richard, I did it. I'm a mechanical technician." "I knew you would, my boy. So, proud of you." "I have a job offer in Chicago, but I don't want to leave you all." "Jason, family isn't measured by distance. Go, grow, be happy. You'll always have a home here." The young man hugged Richard, crying. Another son, of the heart setting off on his path, carrying the master's teachings. The first granddaughter arrived a year after the wedding. Emma was born on a spring morning, filling the family with new joy. Richard held his tiny granddaughter with trembling hands, tears streaming. "Hello, Emma. I'm your grandpa. I promise to love you as I loved your father." "Dad, you're crying," Michael observed. These are tears of gratitude, son. I live to see your daughter. What greater gift is there? Emma brought renewal. Richard found strength he didn't know he had. He wanted to watch his granddaughter grow, to give her the same love he'd given her father. Days at the park became routine. Richard pushing the stroller, Mrs. Henderson by his side, Michael and Emily enjoying a moment's rest. The family, complete. "Know what you'll learn first," Richard would say. "What, Dad?" "That a doting grandpa exists, and he's right here." And his health required constant care, but Richard refused to let his spirits falter. Emma was his new reason to fight, to stay. When Emma began to speak, her first word after Mama and Papa was "Grandpa." Richard cried like a child, hugging her tight. "She called me, did you hear? She said Grandpa." It was impossible not to be moved by his happiness. The man once considered dead weight was now the emotional pillar of the family. The years passed sweetly. Emma grew up surrounded by love. Richard taught her to plant in the garden. Mrs. Henderson told her stories. A golden childhood. Michael watched his father with his daughter and was moved. The same love, the same devotion, the same tenderness he'd received was now being passed to the next generation. "Dad, thank you." "For what, son?" "For teaching me how to be a father, for showing me love multiplies when shared. You were always a good student, Michael. You just needed time to learn the lesson." One special afternoon, Richard gathered the family. He had something important to share. "I've decided to write a book." "A book?" Mrs. Henderson was surprised. "About metal turning?" Michael asked. "No, about turning lives. Our story, son. So other parents and children learn it's never too late for forgiveness." The project consumed Richard with new purpose. He dictated to Emily, who typed. Michael helped organize ideas. Mrs. Henderson edited. From dead weight to living treasure. I told their journey of pain and overcoming. Without bitterness, only lessons. Each chapter a testament to unconditional love. Liberty Metalworks supported the publication. Copies sold out quickly. Parents and children in conflict found hope in those pages. Richard was invited to speak. Despite physical limitations, he accepted a few. Seeing tough men cry at his story moved him deeply. "If our pain helps heal other families, every tear was worth it," he'd say. The book's success didn't change Richard. He remained the same simple man, devoted to family, passionate about work, grateful for life. Then Emma, at 5, asked a question that stunned everyone. "Grandpa, why did Daddy send you away?" Silence at the table. Richard looked at Michael, who lowered his head. How to explain to a child? "Sweetheart, sometimes people we love do things that hurt. Your dad was confused dealing with problems, but you know what matters most." "What, Grandpa?" "He realized his mistake and fixed it. That's what good people do. They make mistakes, admit them, ask forgiveness, and change." "And Grandpa forgave?" "The very same second, my love. Because family love is like that, it always forgives." Emma hugged her grandfather, beaming with joy. Michael had tears in his eyes, still weighed down by guilt. Richard held his hand. "Son, stop punishing yourself. I hold no grudge. Emma needs to see the strong father you are, not the ghost of who you were." Richard's 70th birthday celebration was monumental. The Liberty Metalworks Hall was packed. Employees, apprentices, readers of his book, the entire community celebrating. Jason came from Chicago, now a graduated engineer, engaged, successful. "Mr. Richard, everything I am, I owe to you." "You owe me nothing, Jason. You earned it through your own effort. I just gave you a little push." The speeches continued, each person sharing how Richard had impacted their lives. The lathe operator who became a mentor, counselor, and role model. Michael was the last to speak. "My father taught me many things, but the greatest lesson was about the power of forgiveness. 10 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I kicked out the man who raised me, loved me, sacrificed everything for me. I called the greatest treasure of my life dead weight. But my father, with a greatness few possess, forgave me. He held no resentment. He welcomed me back. He taught me that true love has no pride. Today I look at him and see not just my father, but my hero, the man I want to become. Dad, thank you for choosing me as your son twice, when Mum left and when you forgave me. I love you beyond words. May God give you many more years because the world needs men like you. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Richard embraced his son on stage, emotion overwhelming everyone. Emma ran to join the hug. I love Grandpa too. Laughter broke through the tears. The party lasted well into the night. Richard danced to every song, spoke with every guest, lived fully. The following months were filled with contentment. Richard cut back on work, but kept mentoring. He spent more time with Emma, teaching values, telling stories. Grandpa, when I grow up, I want to be like you. No, my love, be better. Each generation should surpass the last. That's how the world improves. His health took its toll, but Richard faced it with courage. Home adjustments, portable oxygen, nothing stopped him from living. As long as I have breath, I'll make the most of it, he'd say. One morning, Richard woke Michael early. Son, I want to go back to the ocean, see the sunrise on the beach one more time. Of course, Dad, when do you want to go? Soon. I feel I need to see that endless blue again. The trip was quickly arranged. The same Virginia beach, the same hotel, but now with Emma to complete their happiness. Richard rose before dawn, just like the first time. Michael joined him, Emma asleep in her father's arms. They sat on the sand, waiting. When the sun appeared on the horizon, painting the sky gold, Richard sighed deeply. Perfect, absolutely. Perfect. The sunrise, Dad? No, son, life, our family, all perfect. They stayed there, 3 generations united, watching nature awaken. Richard between his son and granddaughter, Mrs. Henderson and Emily joining later, the whole family together. Back home, Richard seemed renewed. The trip brought peace, closure. He returned to his projects with fresh energy. His second book began taking shape. Lessons from a lathe operator told stories of apprentices, cases from Liberty Metalworks, simple life philosophies. I want to leave a legacy, he explained, so future generations learn that honest work brings dignity. Emma loved helping her grandfather. She drew illustrations for the book, sat on his lap as he dictated. A beautiful bond to witness. Grandpa, can I tell you something? Always, my love. My teacher asked who our hero is. I said it's you. Emma, Richard was moved. It's true. You're strong, brave, you forgive people. That's what makes a hero. From the garden, Michael watched father and daughter. How life comes full circle. The man he'd once cast out was now his daughter's hero. Poetic justice. Emma's birthday was approaching. Richard had planned a special surprise, but his health took a turn. He was hospitalized a week before the party. Doctor, I need to leave on Saturday. It's my granddaughter's birthday. Mr. Richard, you need care. Care is not disappointing, Emma, please. His determination won out. Richard was discharged on Friday, weak but resolved. The party would be at home so he wouldn't tire. Too much. When Emma saw her grandfather, she ran to hug him. Grandpa, I thought you wouldn't come. Miss your birthday? Never. Look what Grandpa brought. It was a wooden box, a replica of his own. Inside were photos of Emma as a baby, drawings she'd made, little treasures. Now you have your own memory box, just like Grandpa. Emma hugged the box, moved. Michael watched, the circle completing itself. Love being passed down through generations. The party was simple but magical. Richard told stories, played as much as he could, and was a radiant presence despite his frailty. By day's end, exhausted but happy, Richard called Michael over. Thank you, son. For what, Dad? For giving me reasons to keep going. Emma, you, Emily, Mrs. Henderson, you're my strength. You're our strength, Dad. Our example, our inspiration. Promise me something? Anything. When I'm gone, don't be sad. Celebrate what we've lived. Teach Emma about forgiveness, about love, about family. Carry on the legacy. Dad, don't talk like that. Michael, I'm not afraid. I've lived fully. I've loved, been loved, forgiven, been forgiven. What more could a man want? The following weeks were disguised goodbyes. Richard visited every important place, spoke with every special person, leaving behind advice and love. At Liberty Metalworks, he gathered the apprentices one last time. "You're the future. Carry forward not just the craft, but the ethics. Work with love, live with purpose." Jason came to visit, bringing his fiancée. Richard blessed them, happy to see the young man thriving. "Mr. Richard, how can I repay you for everything?" "By being for someone what I was for you. Pay it forward." "Jason, that's how the world improves." One especially beautiful morning, Richard asked to go to the garden. The whole family gathered. Sun shining, colorful flowers, peace in the air. "What a beautiful day," Richard said. "Perfect for a barbecue," Michael suggested. "Great idea. Family together, good food, joy. What else matters?" They spent the day together. Laughter, stories, future plans. Richard joined in, his eyes sparkling with contentment. That night, tired but happy, Richard retired. Mrs. Henderson stayed with him. Michael said goodnight. Emma blew a kiss. "Sleep well, Dad." "You too. I love you all." In the early hours, Richard passed peacefully. No suffering, no agony. As he'd lived his last years surrounded by love, at peace with all. Michael found an envelope on the wooden box, a farewell letter written weeks prior. "My beloved son, if you're reading, this my journey is complete. Don't cry for me. Celebrate with me the wonderful life we've had. Thank you for choosing me twice as your father. Thank you for the forgiveness that let me live the best years of my life. Take care of Mrs. Henderson. She was an unexpected blessing. Love Emily always. Teach Emma about forgiveness, about family, about unconditional love. The wooden box is yours now. Keep our memories, but most of all, make new ones. Life is to be lived, not mourned. Remember, I was dead weight turned living treasure thanks to your love. What better story is there? Until we meet again, with eternal love, your father." The funeral was a celebration of life. Hundreds came, each with a story of how Richard had touched them. Tears, yes, but also smiles remembering moments. Michael spoke with a choked but steady voice. "My father left as he lived, loving and being loved. He taught me that true family is built on forgiveness. I promise to honor his legacy, to pass on his teachings. Dad, thank you for everything. Rest knowing you made a difference, that you were loved. What will be eternal in our hearts." Emma placed a drawing in the casket. A heart with the words "Best Grandpa in the Universe." A child's simplicity that summed it all up. Life went on, just as Richard had wanted, without excessive mourning, celebrating what had been lived. Michael took over the mentorship at Liberty Metalworks, honoring his father. Mrs. Henderson remained part of the family. Emma's grandmother in spirit, a support in tough times, the loving presence Richard had left behind. Richard's book became a reference on family relationships. Stories of reconciliation kept pouring in, parents and children forgiving each other, inspired by his journey. Years later, teenage Emma wrote a school essay about heroes. "My hero didn't wear a cape or have superpowers. He was a simple man, named Richard, my grandpa. He taught me that the greatest strength is forgiveness, that family is a daily choice to love, that dead weight can become living treasure. He turned mistakes into lessons, pain into growth, abandonment into belonging. If everyone were like my grandpa Richard, the world would be pure love." Michael read it with tears. The legacy lived on. Generation after generation, the story of forgiveness and love kept transforming lives. In the living room, the wooden box held a place of honor. Inside, memories of 3 generations, photos of Richard, Michael, and Emma, a complete cycle of love. Emily was expecting their second child. During the ultrasound, they found out it was a boy. Michael had no doubts about the name. "Richard. He'll be named Richard." "Are you sure?" Emily asked. "Absolutely. May he carry not just the name, but his grandpa's values." Mrs. Henderson cried when she heard Richard would live on in so many ways, in his name, in memories, in lessons, in love multiplied. The house that had once been the stage for a painful expulsion now overflowed with multiplied love. Where there had been rejection, there was now belonging. Where there had been pride, there was humility. On quiet evenings, Michael would open the wooden box. He'd show Emma the photos, tell her stories, keeping the memory alive. "Daddy, do you think Grandpa would be proud of us?" "I'm sure, sweetheart. Wherever he is, he's smiling, seeing our family together. I want to be like him when I grow up." Then be. Forgive always, love without measure, work with dedication, live with purpose. That was his recipe. Little Richard was born on a spring, mourning as if his grandpa had chosen the moment. Healthy, strong, filling the house with new life. Michael held his son, overwhelmed. The cycle began anew, another chance to pass on the legacy of love. "Hi, Richard. I'm your dad. I promise to love you the way my father loved me, unconditionally." Emma met her brother with wonder. With the care of an older child, she touched the baby's tiny face. "Hi, Richard. I'm your big sis. I'll tell you all about our grandpa. You'll love him even without knowing him." Life went on, sweet, sometimes challenging, but always guided by love. The family grew, the lessons remained, the legacy grew stronger. One ordinary afternoon, Michael found Emma reading her grandpa's book. At 12, she was old enough to understand deeply. "Dad, you were both so brave." "Why, honey?" "It takes courage to forgive. It takes even more courage to ask for forgiveness. You were both heroes." Michael hugged his daughter. Richard kept teaching even in absence. His words, his example, his life echoed through time. The Mentor of the Year trophy arrived by mail. Liberty Metalworks honored Richard posthumously. Michael went to receive it, bringing the whole family. In his speech, the company president summed it up. "Richard taught us that success isn't measured by money or position. It's measured by how many lives we change. By that measure, he was the most successful of us all." Emotional applause. The humble lathe operator had become a legend. The dead weight was now a national example of resilience and love. Emily was organizing Richard's belongings when she found an unpublished notebook. Notes from his final days, reflections on life. "I reached the end of my journey with no regrets. Every pain taught me, every joy fulfilled me. Michael gave me the honor of being a father twice. What greater gift is there? If anyone reads this one day, know this. It's never too late to forgive. It's never too early to love. Family is a choice, not fate. Choose to love always." The family read it together, silent tears falling. Richard could still move hearts, even after he was gone. His words were a hug across time. Michael framed the text. He placed it beside Richard's photo in the living room, a daily reminder that love transforms everything. The grandchildren grew up surrounded by stories of their grandfather. They knew every detail, every lesson. Richard lived through them, his values passed down like a precious inheritance. "Dad," Emma asked one morning, "what do you think Grandpa would say if he were here?" Michael smiled, watching the sunrise as Richard loved to do. "He'd tell us to cherish this moment, to be grateful, to love without holding back, to forgive quickly. Then let's do that. Let's, sweetheart, every day." And so they did. Day after day, choosing love over pride, forgiveness over resentment, family above all. Richard smiled from somewhere, his mission complete. In the wooden box, new memories joined the old. Graduation photos, weddings, births. Life went on. Love multiplied. One evening, Michael told little Richard about his grandfather. The boy, now 5, listened intently. "Daddy, was Grandpa magic?" "Why do you ask, son?" "Because he turned sadness into happiness. That's magic." Michael laughed, agreeing. It was magic indeed. The most powerful kind, true love that could heal, transform, and make things last. 20 years had passed since the estrangement, 2 decades of learning, growth, and redemption. The house had witnessed it all, holding memories. Michael, now director of Liberty Metalworks, kept Richard's photo on his desk. Before tough decisions, he'd look at it and ask, "What would you do, Dad?" The answer always came from the heart. Choose with love, lead with humility, always forgive. A foolproof formula Richard had taught. The mentorship program Richard created served hundreds of young people. Jason, now its coordinator, multiplied what he'd received. "Mr. Richard planted a forest where there was only desert," he told the apprentices. It was true, where Richard had walked, lives blossomed. His transformative touch lived on through those he'd shaped. Emma, now a psychology graduate, specialized in family therapy. Her grandfather's book was required reading in her practice. "My grandfather taught me that family is rebuilt with forgiveness," she told her patients. Stories of reconciliation multiplied, parents and children seeking her out, inspired by Richard. His legacy reached unimaginable heights. Little Richard, now in college, decided to become a machinist. The family was surprised. "But son, you could choose any career," Michael said. "I have, Dad. I want to honor my great-grandfather. To work with my hands, to create with love, just like he did." There was no arguing. Richard's blood, no, his love, ran strong in the new generation's veins. The graduation was emotional. Richard received his diploma and raised it to the sky. "This is for you, great-grandpa. I promise to honor your name and your legacy." Liberty Metalworks hired him immediately. The name Richard opened doors, but his inherited talent kept them open. Mrs. Henderson, now 90, still took part in everything. The living memory of Richard, the family's official storyteller. "He'd be so proud," she said, watching her great-grandson at the lathe. "He is proud, Grandma Henderson. Wherever he is, he's watching it all." That's right. Love doesn't die, it just changes address. The wooden box now had replicas. Every family member had their own, storing treasures, building memories. At a family gathering, Michael proposed, "How about we create the Richard Foundation to help families in conflict, offer career mentorship, spread kindness?" Unanimous approval. The foundation started small, but with a giant purpose: to transform lives just as Richard had transformed them. The first person they helped was a father who had been thrown out by his son, a painfully familiar story. Michael welcomed him personally. "I went through that. My father forgave me. You can rebuild too. But my son hates me. Mine hated me too. Today I honor my father every day. Don't give up." Months later, the father and son, now reconciled, visited the foundation, embracing, crying, giving thanks. Another family healed by Richard's example. The numbers grew. Dozens, hundreds, thousands touched by the story. The humble lathe operator had become a phenomenon of social transformation. Universities studied the Richard case. How had a family expulsion sparked a movement of love that spanned generations? Sociologists, psychologists, all trying to understand. Michael had the simple answer: "My father chose to forgive. That's all. A choice that changed everything." It was the plain truth. In his moment of deepest pain, Richard chose love. That choice echoed through time, healing wounds that didn't even exist yet. Emma wrote an academic book, The Psychology of Forgiveness, the Richard Case Study. An instant bestseller, a landmark in the field. In her lectures, she summed it up: "My grandfather proved forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the greatest strength there is. It turns victims into victors." Little Richard, now a master lathe operator, crafted pieces that were works of art. Each creation, a tribute to his great-grandfather. "I feel him guiding my hands," he'd say. "It's like he's right here, teaching me." Michael watched his son at the lathe and saw his father. The same mannerisms, the same focus, the same love for the craft. Genetics? No. Love crossing generations. 50 years after the expulsion, the family held a grand celebration, not of sorrow, but of gratitude for the journey. The hall was packed. 3 generations of mentees, reconciled families, transformed lives. A chorus of testimonies about how Richard had changed destinies. Michael, now elderly, gave an emotional speech. "Half a century ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. But my father turned that mistake into the greatest blessing. He taught me love conquers all. Today I see his legacy alive in every person here. Dad, wherever you are, know this. Every tear was worth it. Your choice to forgive didn't just save our family, it saved thousands of others. Thank you for choosing me as your son. Thank you for forgiving me. Thank you for teaching me to love." A shower of applause. Somewhere Richard was surely smiling, a mission more than accomplished. Love multiplied to infinity. The original wooden box now sat in a museum, the centerpiece of the exhibit. Richard, from dead weight to living heritage. Visitors moved by the story. School children on field trips would ask, "Why is an old box so important?" The guide, one of Richard's mentees, would explain, "Because it holds more than objects. It holds proof that love wins, that family is a choice, that it's never too late to start over." The children would leave thoughtful seeds planted, future generations learning from Richard without ever having met him. The documentary, The Lathe Operator of Forgiveness, won international awards. The story crossed borders, languages, cultures. Love as a universal language. Letters arrived from all over the world. Parents and children reconciled, families rebuilt, hope renewed. The lathe operator from Allentown had become a citizen of the world. Michael read each letter, always moved. "Thank you for sharing your story. It saved my family." I asked my son for forgiveness after learning about Richard. Now we're best friends. I learned dead weight only exists if we let it. I chose to be a living treasure. The impact was immeasurable. One choice of forgiveness creating endless waves of healing. Richard had achieved the impossible, turning personal pain into collective remedy. Mrs. Henderson passed at 95, peacefully in her sleep. The last direct link to Richard, but not the end of the story. Far from it. Her funeral was a celebration of a life lived with purpose. By Richard's side once more, eternal love sealed, a complete family in another dimension. The new generations have taken up the torch. Great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, each carrying a piece of the legacy. Spiritual DNA stronger than the biological. The Richard Foundation served millions, a government family support program based on his principles, the humble lathe operator influencing public policy. In schools, his story was told as an example, children learning early on. Family is built with love, sustained with forgiveness. "Teacher, if my dad kicks me out, I'll forgive like Richard." Let's hope you never have to, dear. But if you do, remember, love always wins. Michael, in his final years, compiled his last memories, an open letter to his father published worldwide. "Dad, 100 years have passed since your birth, 50 since you changed my life with your forgiveness. Today, I see your love in every corner of the world. You proved that an ordinary man can do extraordinary things. That turning metal was just practice for your true work, turning hearts. You taught me that family isn't blood, it's a daily choice. That forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's choosing love over pain. That dead weight is an illusion. We're all treasures waiting to be polished. I promise to continue your legacy." I look around and see, we did it, Dad. Your love multiplied beyond imagination. Generations yet unborn are already touched by your story. Thank you for showing me that rejection can become embrace, that an end can be a beginning, that the smallest act of love echoes through eternity. We'll meet again soon. I have so much to tell you. Until then, we carry on here, choosing love, practicing forgiveness, building families. Your favorite lathe operator now shapes destinies, every transformed life, another perfect piece from your invisible yet ever-present hands. With infinite love and eternal gratitude, your son forever, Michael. The letter went viral. Millions shared it, wept over it, saw themselves in it. Impossible to read without questioning one's own relationships, one's own choices. Michael passed peacefully, his mission complete. A lifetime's work honoring his father, a heavenly reunion of souls who chose to love. The story continued, no end in sight. Every forgiveness offered, every family rebuilt, every choice of love over pride perpetuated Richard. Centuries would pass, technologies would change, the world would evolve. But the truth discovered by a simple lathe operator would remain unchanged. Love transforms everything. Forgiveness heals everything. Family is a choice, not fate. And somewhere Richard smiles. The dead weight turned eternal treasure, the outcast who became humanity's heritage. Because in the end, only love remains. Only love transforms, only love endures. And Richard loved, simply completely eternally loved. The end. Well, dear listener, what did you think of Richard and Michael's journey? Tell us where you're watching from and if this story touched your heart. Do you believe forgiveness can truly transform lives? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartwarming stories.